Imagine standing in the middle of a storm, wind howling, debris flying everywhere, and yet right in the eye of the storm, there is complete stillness. That is the mind of a true Stoic, calm, unshaken, and clear, despite the chaos around them. In a world that constantly demands our attention, where opinions, distractions, and emotions pull us in every direction, the ability to think clearly is not just an advantage, it is a necessity. The Stoics understood this over 2,000 years ago, and their wisdom remains just as relevant today as it was in ancient Rome. If you have ever felt overwhelmed by your thoughts, unsure of your decisions, or trapped in mental clutter, this is for you. Today, you will learn 6 powerful lessons from Stoic philosophy that will help you master the art of thinking clearly. These are not abstract concepts or empty theories, but practical principles that can transform the way you perceive the world and navigate through life. By the end of this, you will have the tools to free your mind from unnecessary distractions, make better decisions, and cultivate a mindset that remains unshaken, no matter what life throws at you. The challenge is simple. Watch until the very end, not just because you want to, but because you are committed to improving yourself. Because deep down, you know that the ability to think clearly is the key to overcoming obstacles, achieving success, and living a life of purpose. If you accept this challenge, let's begin. The first lesson is one that most people overlook in their pursuit of knowledge, productivity, and personal growth. Yet it is the foundation upon which all clear thinking is built. It is the power of stillness. The modern world bombards us with notifications, news, and endless streams of information. The result? A restless mind that jumps from one thought to another, never fully present, never truly focused. But what if you could pause? What if instead of reacting to every stimulus, you could step back, observe, and choose your response with clarity? Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and emperors of Rome, once said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." This is a reminder that no matter how chaotic the outside world becomes, you have the ability to create stillness within. You do not need to escape to a remote cabin or meditate for hours. Stillness is not about shutting out the world. It is about training your mind to remain calm and focused despite the noise. Take a moment, right now. Breathe in, hold it, exhale. In that brief moment, you just experienced what it means to be present. The ability to cultivate stillness, even for a few minutes each day, is what separates those who react impulsively from those who act with wisdom. This is not about inaction. On the contrary, stillness is the source of the greatest action, because it allows you to think with clarity before you move. When you are still, you can hear your own thoughts instead of being drowned out by external distractions. Throughout history, some of the most successful and wise individuals have understood this principle. They knew that true power comes not from constant action, but from the ability to pause, reflect, and then take decisive action. Whether you are making a critical decision, facing a difficult conversation, or simply trying to navigate the complexities of daily life, stillness allows you to see things as they truly are, rather than being clouded by stress, fear, or external pressure. But stillness alone is not enough. The next lesson is about questioning your assumptions. Every single day, you are influenced by beliefs that you may have never examined closely. These beliefs shape your perceptions, decisions, and reactions, yet many of them may be limiting your ability to think clearly. Why? Because they are often based on past experiences, emotions, or societal conditioning rather than objective truth. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, wisely noted, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Think about that. How often have you been afraid of something, only to realize later that the fear was entirely in your mind? How many times have you assumed that something would go wrong, only to find that it never actually happened? The Stoics understood that the human mind is often its own worst enemy. If you want to think clearly, you must challenge your own assumptions. Do not accept something as true simply because you have always believed it. Ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Is it based on evidence or just emotion? Is it serving me or is it holding me back? True wisdom comes from the ability to see beyond your initial perspective, to consider alternative viewpoints, and to be willing to change your mind when new information arises. This is not about doubting everything. It is about being intellectually honest with yourself. It is easy to stick with what feels comfortable, to only seek out information that confirms what you already believe. But the moment you start questioning your own thoughts, you gain the ability to break free from biases and see the world as it truly is. That is the essence of clear thinking. And yet, even with stillness and a willingness to question assumptions, there is still one major obstacle that clouds our minds, trying to control things that are beyond our control. This brings us to the third lesson, one of the most powerful insights from Stoicism. Focus only on what you can control. The world is unpredictable. Events happen that you did not expect. People act in ways that you cannot change. If you spend your energy worrying about things outside of your control, you will exhaust yourself mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic teachers, said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with rocks. Each rock represents a worry about something you cannot control, what other people think of you, the outcome of an event, the past, the future. The more you focus on these things, the heavier the backpack becomes, slowing you down, making every step forward harder. Now imagine taking that backpack off. The weight disappears. You feel lighter, freer. That is what happens when you shift your focus to what you can control: your thoughts, your actions, your mindset. The moment you accept that some things are beyond your control, you gain an incredible sense of freedom. You stop wasting energy on what you cannot change and start directing it toward what you can. Instead of complaining about circumstances, you take action on what is within your power. Instead of being frustrated by other people's behavior, you focus on improving yourself. This is not just a philosophical idea. It is a strategy for a stronger, clearer mind. And yet, even when you focus on what you can control, there is another challenge that stands in the way of clear thinking: complexity. In a world filled with endless choices, overwhelming information, and constant noise, the ability to simplify is a superpower. That is the fourth lesson: seek simplicity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The problem is that most people complicate their lives unnecessarily. They fill their schedules with commitments they do not need. They surround themselves with distractions that pull them away from what truly matters. They overthink, overanalyze, and end up feeling paralyzed by too many options. Simplicity does not mean doing less. It means doing what truly matters. It means cutting out the unnecessary, eliminating distractions, and focusing your energy on what brings real value. If your mind feels cluttered, look at your daily habits. Are you constantly checking your phone? Are you saying yes to things that do not align with your priorities? Are you overcomplicating problems that have simple solutions? By simplifying your thoughts, your decisions, and your environment, you create space for clarity. When you stop trying to do everything, you gain the ability to focus deeply on the things that truly matter. And that is where true wisdom comes from. Simplicity also applies to how you approach problems. Many people get stuck overanalyzing situations, trying to predict every possible outcome, worrying about every detail. But the Stoics understood that most of the time, the best action is the simplest one. If you have a difficult decision to make, strip away everything unnecessary and ask yourself, what is the most straightforward path forward? What action aligns with my values? What step can I take right now that will move me in the right direction? Thinking clearly is not about having all the answers. It is about knowing which questions truly matter. When you simplify your thinking, you remove the noise, the distractions, and the unnecessary complications that cloud your mind. You see things as they are, not as your fears or emotions make them seem. And once you develop this ability, life becomes much easier to navigate. Yet even with a simple mindset, even when you focus on what you can control and embrace stillness, there is still one major challenge that can cloud your thinking, your emotions. This leads to the fifth lesson: master your emotions, or they will master you. Emotions are powerful. They drive our decisions, shape our experiences, and influence how we see the world. But if you are not careful, they can also distort reality. Have you ever been so angry that you said something you regretted? So anxious that you convinced yourself of a worst-case scenario that never happened? So excited that you made a decision without thinking it through? The Stoics did not believe in suppressing emotions. They believed in understanding them, mastering them, and making sure they did not control their actions. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is a reminder that emotions are not the problem. The problem is when emotions dictate your actions without your awareness. The key to clear thinking is recognizing your emotions without being controlled by them. The first step is awareness. The next time you feel a strong emotion, pause. Instead of reacting immediately, observe it. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? Is my perception accurate, or is it being influenced by my emotions? This simple act of stepping back creates space between your feelings and your actions. It allows you to respond with clarity instead of reacting impulsively. The second step is challenging the thoughts behind your emotions. Emotions are often based on assumptions, expectations, or interpretations that may not be true. If you feel anxious, ask yourself, what evidence do I have that something bad will happen? If you feel angry, ask, what am I expecting that is not being met? Often, when you break down an emotion logically, you realize that it is not as justified as it first seemed. The third step is redirecting your energy. Instead of letting emotions drain you, use them as fuel. If you feel frustrated, channel that energy into taking action. If you feel anxious, use it as a reminder to prepare rather than worry. If you feel disappointed, see it as an opportunity to adjust your expectations and move forward. The Stoics understood that emotions themselves are neither good nor bad. It is how you handle them that matters. But even when you master your emotions, Think with simplicity and focus on what you can control. There is still one final lesson that determines whether your thinking will remain clear in the long run. It is perhaps the most important lesson of all. Take responsibility for your mind. No one else will think for you. No one else will filter out distractions, question assumptions, or decide what deserves your attention. That responsibility is yours alone. If you allow the world to dictate what you think about, your mind will be filled with noise, confusion, and external influences that do not serve you. If you do not take control of your thoughts, someone else will. Epictetus said, "If a person gave away your body to some passerby, you would be furious, yet you hand over your mind to anyone who happens to criticize you, and you allow it to be troubled and confused." This is a powerful reminder that clear thinking requires ownership. It means being selective about what you allow into your mind. It means questioning not just external influences, but also your own patterns of thought. It means making a daily effort to strengthen your ability to focus, reflect, and make decisions based on reason rather than impulse. In the modern world, there are countless things competing for your attention: social media, news, advertisements, opinions, distractions. If you're not careful, these things will shape your thoughts without you even realizing it. But when you take responsibility for your mind, you decide what enters it and what does not. You decide what is worth your time and what is simply noise. And when you do this, something incredible happens. You begin to see the world differently. Problems that once seemed overwhelming become manageable. Decisions that once felt complicated become clear. Situations that once triggered stress no longer have power over you. Because clear thinking is not just a skill. It is a way of life. It is the foundation of wisdom, success, and inner peace. The path of the Stoic is not about being perfect. It is not about never feeling emotions or never making mistakes. It is about striving every day to think a little more clearly, to act a little more wisely, and to approach life with a mindset that is strong, focused, and free. This journey never truly ends. There will always be distractions. There will always be emotions, challenges, and moments of uncertainty. But with these 6 lessons, stillness, questioning assumptions, focusing on what you can control, simplicity, mastering emotions, and taking responsibility for your mind, you will always have a guide, a compass to navigate through life with clarity, no matter what comes your way. Thinking clearly is not just about the moments when life is calm and predictable. True clarity is tested in the moments of pressure, uncertainty, and change. Anyone can think clearly when they are relaxed, when there are no urgent decisions to make, and when everything is going according to plan. But what happens when things go wrong, when emotions rise, when unexpected events shake your world? This is where the true power of clear thinking reveals itself. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind is howling, the rain is pouring, and the world around you is chaotic. Most people panic in this situation. They let the storm control them. But the Stoic approach is different. The Stoic sees the storm, acknowledges it, but does not let it dictate their actions. They focus on what they can control: their steps, their breathing, their thoughts. They know that no matter how strong the storm is, their ability to think clearly remains within their power. This is how you must approach life. There will be moments when everything feels uncertain, when the future seems unclear, and when emotions try to cloud your judgment. But in those moments, you must return to the principles of clarity. Pause, breathe, Remove the unnecessary. Focus on the facts. Ask yourself, what is within my control right now? What is the simplest, most rational action I can take? What thoughts are helping me, and what thoughts are only creating unnecessary fear or stress? Marcus Aurelius, who faced war, betrayal, and immense pressure as the Emperor of Rome, wrote these words: "You have the power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is not just philosophy. It is a practical tool for life. Because no matter what happens, you always have the ability to control how you think about it. And yet, many people do not realize this power. They go through life reacting rather than thinking. They allow circumstances to shape their mindset rather than shaping it themselves. They let distractions, emotions, and external influences control their perspective. But those who truly master clear thinking understand something crucial. Your mind is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. Every day, you are either strengthening your ability to think clearly, or you are weakening it. Every decision you make, every habit you reinforce, every piece of information you consume is shaping the way your mind operates. If you fill your mind with negativity, fear, and confusion, that is how you will think. But if you train your mind to seek clarity, to focus on what matters, to challenge assumptions, and to stay calm under pressure, then over time, clear thinking will become second nature. Think of a great athlete. They do not just perform well during competition. They train every day, even when no one is watching. They strengthen their body so that when the real challenge comes, they are ready. The same applies to your mind. If you only try to think clearly when you are in a difficult situation, it will be much harder. But if you train yourself every day through reflection, through questioning assumptions, through simplifying your thoughts and mastering your emotions, then when challenges arise, you will already be prepared. One of the best ways to train your mind is through journaling. Marcus Aurelius himself kept a journal, which later became known as Meditations. He did not write it for an audience. He wrote it as a way to think clearly, to remind himself of Stoic principles, and to reflect on his actions. If you want to strengthen your ability to think clearly, take a few minutes each day to write down your thoughts. Ask yourself, what is within my control today? What assumptions am I making that I should question? What distractions are clouding my mind? What emotions am I feeling? And how should I respond to them? Over time, this practice builds a habit of clarity. It forces you to slow down, organize your thoughts, and recognize patterns in your thinking. And the more you do it, the more natural, clear thinking becomes. Another powerful way to train your mind is by exposing yourself to different perspectives. One of the biggest obstacles to clear thinking is being trapped in your own viewpoint. When you only see the world through your own experiences, your own beliefs, and your own emotions, your perspective becomes limited. But when you seek out new ideas, challenge your existing beliefs, and listen to people with different perspectives, you expand your ability to see reality as it truly is. This does not mean you have to agree with everything you hear. In fact, the goal is not to blindly accept new ideas, but to train yourself to evaluate them rationally. Instead of immediately rejecting something because it contradicts what you believe, ask yourself, what if this is true? What evidence supports this? What evidence contradicts it? What can I learn from this, even if I ultimately disagree? The Stoics were not afraid of new ideas. They welcomed wisdom from different sources, always seeking to refine their understanding of the world. Seneca once said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." This mindset is the key to clear thinking, never assuming you have all the answers, always being willing to learn, and constantly refining your perspective. At the same time, clear thinking also requires knowing when to ignore information. In today's world, we are bombarded with endless news, opinions, and distractions. If you are not careful, your mind can become overwhelmed with unnecessary information that does not actually help you. This is why it is important to be selective about what you allow into your mind. Ask yourself, does this information help me make better decisions? Does it bring me closer to wisdom, understanding, or clarity? Or is it just noise designed to provoke an emotional reaction rather than provide real insight? If something is not useful, do not let it take up space in your mind. Just as you would not fill your body with junk food, do not fill your mind with junk information. By training your mind, questioning your assumptions, simplifying your thoughts, mastering your emotions, and taking responsibility for what enters your mind, you develop the ability to navigate life with a sense of control and purpose. Because in the end, thinking clearly is not just about making better decisions. It is about living a better life. When you develop the ability to think clearly, you start to notice something interesting. You begin to see patterns in your thoughts, in your actions, and in the way the world operates. You recognize that many of the problems you once thought were external, problems caused by other people, by circumstances, by the world itself, were actually problems rooted in your own perception, the way you interpret events, the way you respond to challenges, the way you process emotions. All of these are within your control, and all of these determine how you experience life. This is why the Stoics placed such a strong emphasis on perception. They understood that two people can experience the exact same event, but interpret it in completely different ways. One person might see a challenge as a disaster, while another sees it as an opportunity. One person might feel defeated by failure, while another sees it as a lesson. The event itself does not change. What changes is how the person thinks about it. This is where true freedom comes from. When you realize that you are not at the mercy of external events, but instead have the power to choose your response, you take back control of your life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These words are simple but profound. They remind us that our thoughts shape our reality. But knowing this is not enough. It must become a practice. It must become the foundation of how you approach life. Because the truth is, clear thinking is not automatic. The human mind is naturally drawn to confusion, distraction, and overcomplication. It is easy to get lost in worries, to react emotionally, to assume the worst, to focus on things that do not matter. If you do not take control of your thoughts will take control of you. This is why the practice of clear thinking requires discipline. Every day, you must choose to see things as they truly are, not as your emotions or assumptions might distort them. You must train yourself to pause before reacting, to analyze before assuming, to simplify before overcomplicating. You must remind yourself that your thoughts are within your control, and that by mastering them, you master yourself. One way to strengthen this discipline is by applying a technique known as viewing from above. The Stoics used this exercise to create perspective, to step outside their immediate emotions and see things from a higher level. Imagine you are looking down at your life from a great distance. From this perspective, the things that once seemed overwhelming suddenly appear smaller. The worries, the frustrations, the setbacks, they all become just small moments in a much larger picture. This exercise reminds you that most of what you stress about will not matter in the long run. It helps you detach from unnecessary worries and see things with greater clarity. Because when you step back and look at the bigger picture, you realize that many of the things that cloud your mind are just distractions. They are temporary. They are not worth the energy you give them. Another way to strengthen the discipline of clear thinking is by focusing on what is essential. The world is full of distractions, news, opinions, advertisements, entertainment, endless streams of information competing for your attention. If you allow yourself to be consumed by all of it, your mind becomes scattered. You lose focus. You lose clarity. But when you train yourself to ask, what is truly essential, you begin to filter out the noise. You start to see what actually matters and what is just background distraction. This is what the Stoics meant when they emphasized simplicity, not minimalism for its own sake, but clarity through focus. The ability to strip away what is unnecessary so that you can give your full attention to what truly matters. This applies not only to external distractions, but also to your internal thoughts. Your mind is constantly producing ideas, opinions, and emotions. Some of these are useful, many are not. If you do not control which thoughts you give energy to, you will find yourself trapped in overthinking, anxiety, and unnecessary stress. To counter this, make it a habit to ask yourself, is this thought helping me? Is it leading me toward a clearer understanding of the situation, or is it just creating confusion? If a thought is not useful, let it go. Do not entertain it. Do not give it more space than it deserves. Treat your mind like a well-organized room. Only allow in what adds value and remove what creates clutter. This approach will not only improve your clarity of thought, but also your emotional well-being. Because many negative emotions, stress, frustration, fear, are the result of unclear thinking. When you do not see things as they truly are, you react based on assumptions and emotions rather than reason. But when you develop the habit of clear thinking, you create space between stimulus and response. You give yourself time to evaluate, to choose the best course of action rather than reacting impulsively. This is how the Stoics remained calm under pressure. It was not because they ignored their emotions, but because they understood them. They recognized that emotions are natural, but do not have to control them. They knew that by thinking clearly, they could make decisions based on wisdom rather than impulse. And this is something you can apply in your own life every single day. Before reacting to a situation, pause. Before forming an opinion, analyze. Before assuming the worst, consider other possibilities. Before getting lost in distractions, return to what is essential. These small habits, repeated consistently, will transform the way you think and the way you live. With time, you will begin to notice that your mind feels lighter, that you no longer get caught up in unnecessary worries, that you make better decisions, not because you are forcing yourself to, but because it has become natural. This is the power of training your mind. It does not happen overnight, but every small step adds up. And the more you practice, the clearer your thinking becomes. As you refine the ability to think clearly, you will begin to notice a shift not just in your thoughts, but in your entire experience of life. The way you interpret events, the way you respond to challenges, and the way you interact with others will all start to transform. The power of clarity is not just about making better decisions. It is about fundamentally changing your relationship with reality. One of the greatest benefits of clear thinking is the ability to remain calm in the face of uncertainty. Life is unpredictable. Challenges arise without warning. Unexpected setbacks occur. If your mind is clouded by fear, confusion, or reactionary thinking, these challenges will overwhelm you. But if your mind is clear, you will approach them with composure. You will be able to see what needs to be done and act accordingly. The Stoics understood that most suffering does not come from external events, but from how we interpret them. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This means that no matter what happens in your life, you have the ability to determine how you respond. You can choose to see challenges as burdens, or you can see them as opportunities to grow stronger. This mindset is not about pretending that difficulties do not exist. It is about recognizing that you always have a choice in how you interpret and respond to them. And when you develop the habit of thinking clearly, you will find that challenges lose much of their power over you. They no longer feel overwhelming. Instead, they become just another part of the journey. One practical way to reinforce this mindset is through journaling. The Stoics used writing as a tool to sharpen their thinking, to clarify their emotions, and to reflect on their actions. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations was essentially a personal journal, his way of reminding himself of what was truly important. He wrote not to impress others, but to discipline his own mind. You can do the same. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to reflect. What thoughts clouded your mind today? What moments tested your clarity? Where did you react emotionally rather than responding wisely? By putting your thoughts into words, you make them tangible. You bring order to mental chaos. You begin to notice patterns, habits of thinking that serve you and habits that do not. And once you see these patterns, you can begin to change them. Another powerful way to strengthen clear thinking is through the practice of detachment. The mind tends to latch onto things, desires, fears, opinions, expectations, and when it does, clarity is lost. You become consumed by what you want or what you fear, and your vision narrows. Detachment does not mean indifference. It does not mean that you stop caring about things. It means that you stop being controlled by them. For example, if you are attached to the idea that things must always go your way, then every setback will feel devastating. But if you practice detachment, you will accept that life is unpredictable. You will focus not on what you wish would happen, but on how you can respond effectively to what is happening. This shift in perspective is incredibly liberating. It allows you to navigate life with greater ease, because you are no longer weighed down by unrealistic expectations. Detachment also applies to your own thoughts and emotions. When an emotion arises, anger, frustration, worry, you do not have to act on it immediately. Instead, you can observe it. You can step back and analyze it. Where is this emotion coming from? Is it based on reality, or is it the result of an assumption or expectation? By creating this space between stimulus and response, you give yourself the freedom to choose your reaction. Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, said, "It is not events that disturb people. It is their judgments concerning them." This simple truth is the foundation of clear thinking. The world around you is what it is. It is your interpretation of it that determines how you feel and how you act. And once you master this understanding, you gain an incredible level of control over your own life. But clarity is not just about how you handle challenges. It is also about how you make decisions. Every day, you are faced with choices, big and small, and the quality of your life is ultimately determined by the quality of your decisions. When your mind is clouded by distractions, biases, or emotions, you make poor decisions. But when you train yourself to think clearly, you make choices that are aligned with your values, your goals, and your long-term well-being. One simple but effective technique for making better decisions is to ask yourself, if I were advising a friend in this exact situation, what would I tell them? Often we have great clarity when giving advice to others, but struggle when making decisions for ourselves. This is because we are too close to our own problems. By stepping outside of yourself and looking at your situation objectively, you can remove emotional bias and see things as they truly are. Another powerful decision-making tool is the view from the future. Before making a choice, imagine yourself 5 or 10 years from now, looking back on this moment. What decision would you wish you had made? This perspective shifts your focus from short-term emotions to long-term wisdom. It helps you see beyond immediate gratification and consider the bigger picture. Clear thinking is also essential in how you interact with others. Many conflicts, misunderstandings, and frustrations come from unclear thinking, jumping to conclusions, misinterpreting intentions, reacting impulsively, instead of responding thoughtfully. But when you approach conversations with clarity, you listen more deeply. You ask better questions. You seek to understand before seeking to be understood. The Stoics emphasized the importance of active listening. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. This is a valuable reminder that we must always question our own interpretations. Just because something feels true does not mean that it is true. And just because someone disagrees with us does not mean they are wrong. By practicing clear thinking in your conversations, you become a better communicator. You stop reacting defensively. You become open to different viewpoints. You gain the ability to have difficult discussions without letting emotions take control. And in doing so, you build stronger relationships based on understanding rather than assumption. Another aspect of clarity is knowing what to focus on. In today's world, there's an infinite amount of information competing for your attention. If you are not careful, your mind will become cluttered with distractions. You will spend your time on things that do not truly matter. This is why the practice of mental discipline is so important. The ability to say no to distractions, to prioritize what is essential, to direct your attention with intention. These are the keys to maintaining clarity. One way to do this is to ask yourself regularly, is this thought, this activity, this decision contributing to my growth and well-being? Or is it simply noise? If something does not add value to your life, let it go. This applies to everything: habits, relationships, even the content you consume. The more intentional you are with your focus, the clearer your mind becomes. And as you develop these habits, you will start to notice something powerful. You will find that life itself starts to feel different. Problems that once seemed overwhelming will become manageable. Decisions that once felt confusing will become clearer. Relationships that once felt strained will improve. Because at the core of all of this is one simple truth: the quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life. Train your mind, and you train your reality. When you take control of your mind, you take control of your life. But this is not something that happens overnight. It requires patience, persistence, and practice. The habits of thought that cloud your judgment and create unnecessary suffering were not formed in a day, and they will not disappear in a day either. This is why consistency is so important. The more you train yourself to think clearly, the more natural it becomes. One of the greatest challenges to clear thinking is emotional reactivity. When something unexpected happens, when someone insults you, when you face rejection, when circumstances don't go as planned, your immediate reaction is often emotional. This is natural. The human brain is wired to respond to perceived threats with a fight-or-flight response. But this automatic reaction is not always useful. In fact, it often leads to poor decisions. The Stoics taught that one of the most powerful skills you can develop is the ability to pause before reacting. When something triggers an emotional response, instead of immediately acting on that emotion, step back. Observe it. Ask yourself, is this reaction helping me? Is it based on facts, or is it based on my interpretation of the situation? What would be the wisest way to respond? This simple pause, this brief moment of reflection, can completely change how you experience life. Instead of being a slave to your emotions, you become their master. You begin to recognize that emotions are just signals. They provide information, but they do not have to control you. You can acknowledge them without being consumed by them. And when you learn to do this, you gain an incredible level of freedom. Imagine a person who is easily offended, constantly reacting to every perceived slight. Now imagine another person who remains calm in the face of criticism, who does not let others' words dictate their mood. Which person has more power? The one who is controlled by their emotions, or the one who controls them? This does not mean suppressing emotions. Suppression is not the same as mastery. When you suppress emotions, you push them down without understanding them. But when you observe them without attachment, you gain insight. You begin to see patterns. You begin to understand what triggers you and why. And once you understand, you can begin to change. Another key element of clear thinking is intellectual humility. Many people assume that thinking clearly means always being right. But the truth is, thinking clearly often means admitting when you are wrong. It means recognizing that your perspective is limited, that your knowledge is incomplete, and that there is always more to learn. Socrates, one of the great philosophical influences on Stoicism, famously said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing that you know nothing." This does not mean that you should doubt everything. It means that you should remain open to new information, to different perspectives, to the possibility that you may not have all the answers. This mindset makes you a better thinker because it removes the ego from the equation. When you are attached to being right, you resist new ideas. You dismiss information that contradicts your beliefs. But when you let go of the need to be right, you become a true seeker of truth. You ask better questions. You challenge your own assumptions. You are willing to change your mind when presented with better evidence. And this applies not just to intellectual matters, but to life itself. How many times have you been certain about something, only to realize later that you were mistaken? How many times have you judged a situation too quickly, only to see it differently with time? The ability to admit when you are wrong is not a weakness. It is a strength. It is a sign of true intelligence. Clear thinking also requires the ability to separate what is within your control from what is not. One of the greatest sources of stress and frustration in life comes from trying to control things that are beyond your power. You cannot control the actions of others. You cannot control the past. You cannot control external events. But you can control how you respond to them. This is one of the most important Stoic lessons. Focus only on what you can control. When you spend energy worrying about things outside your control, you waste mental resources that could be used to improve your own actions, decisions, and mindset. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this constantly. In his writings, he repeatedly returned to the idea that external events do not determine his happiness. His own mind does. He understood that life is unpredictable, that people are flawed, that difficulties will arise. But he also understood that none of these things have the power to disturb his inner peace, unless he allows them to. This is why clear thinking is so powerful. It gives you the ability to remain centered no matter what is happening around you. It allows you to move through life with confidence and purpose, rather than being constantly tossed around by circumstances. It helps you make better decisions, build stronger relationships, and focus on what truly matters. And one of the best ways to strengthen this ability is through daily reflection. At the end of each day, take a moment to ask yourself, did I act with clarity today? Did I let emotions cloud my judgment? Did I focus on what I can control? Or did I waste energy on things outside my power? By making this a habit, you will begin to see patterns. You will notice where you struggle and where you excel. And over time, you will develop a level of mental discipline that allows you to think and act with greater wisdom. Another practical exercise is the practice of negative visualization. The Stoics understood that one of the greatest obstacles to clear thinking is taking things for granted. When you assume that things will always go as planned, you are unprepared for challenges. But when you regularly reflect on the fact that life is uncertain, you train yourself to be mentally resilient. For example, take a moment to imagine losing something you take for granted: your health, a relationship, your ability to work. This is not about dwelling on negative thoughts. It is about cultivating gratitude and preparedness. When you truly appreciate what you have, you stop being distracted by minor inconveniences. You stop wasting time on things that do not matter. You become more focused, more disciplined, and more appreciative of the present moment. And this mindset applies to success as well. Many people assume that success will bring happiness, but this is an illusion. If you are not content with what you have now, you will not be content with more. The key to happiness is not in external achievements, it is in how you think. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." This does not mean that ambition is bad. It means that if your happiness depends on achieving something in the future, you will never truly be satisfied. But if you learn to appreciate the present while still striving for improvement, you will find a deep sense of fulfillment. This is why the art of clear thinking is so essential. It is not just about making better decisions. It is about living a better life. It is about reducing unnecessary suffering, increasing resilience, and gaining the ability to see the world as it truly is. And when you commit to this practice, you will notice changes in every area of your life. You will be more patient, more focused, more at peace with yourself and with the world. You will stop wasting time on things that do not matter and start investing your energy in what truly does. Because at the end of the day, the greatest freedom you have is the ability to choose how you think. And that choice will determine the quality of your entire life. When you train your mind to think clearly, you begin to see things for what they truly are, not for what your emotions or biases make them seem. This is a fundamental Stoic principle, to see reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. Many of our struggles come not from the events themselves, but from the stories we tell ourselves about those events. A setback in life is just that, a setback. It is not proof that you are a failure, nor is it a sign that the universe is against you. But if you allow emotions to take control, you might interpret it in a way that causes unnecessary suffering. This is why perspective is everything. The Stoics remind us that nothing is inherently good or bad. It is our judgment that makes it so. You might lose a job, and at first see it as a disaster. But months later you might realize that it led you to something better. The event itself did not change. Only your interpretation of it did. The problem is that most people only gain perspective after time has passed. The challenge is to develop the ability to gain perspective in the present moment. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this in his personal writings. He would reflect on the impermanence of life, on the insignificance of daily worries in the grand scheme of things. He understood that what troubles us today will one day be forgotten, and that most of our worries are self-created. He trained his mind to rise above immediate reactions and see things from a higher perspective. This ability to shift perspective is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with practice. One way to train it is to ask yourself questions when faced with a difficult situation. Instead of reacting emotionally, pause and ask, what is the larger picture here? Will this matter in a year? What can I learn from this? These simple questions help create distance between you and your emotions, allowing you to see things more objectively. Another way to cultivate clear thinking is to embrace discomfort. Most people avoid discomfort at all costs, but the Stoics believed that facing discomfort is essential for growth. When you challenge yourself, whether through physical discipline, mental exercises, or stepping outside your comfort zone, you build resilience. And resilience strengthens your ability to think clearly under pressure. Take cold exposure as an example. Many Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort, such as bathing in cold water or wearing simple clothing, to train themselves to endure hardship. The purpose was not self-punishment, but self-mastery. When you voluntarily expose yourself to discomfort, you teach your mind that you can handle more than you think. You become less reactive to small inconveniences, less afraid of uncertainty, and more capable of facing challenges with a calm and steady mind. This practice applies not only to physical discomfort, but also to mental challenges. Try engaging in difficult conversations without letting emotions take control. Practice patience when things do not go your way. Challenge yourself to sit in silence without distractions, observing your thoughts without reacting to them. These small exercises train the mind to remain clear and composed in any situation. Another essential principle of clear thinking is the recognition of impermanence. Everything in life is temporary. Your successes, your failures, your joys, and your hardships. The Stoics constantly reflected on this truth to keep themselves grounded. When you recognize the fleeting nature of things, you stop clinging to them. You stop fearing loss, because you understand that loss is inevitable. And when you accept impermanence, you free yourself from unnecessary anxiety. Imagine how much stress comes from trying to hold on to things that are beyond your control. People worry about losing wealth, status, relationships, or comfort. But when you accept that everything is in a state of change, you stop resisting reality. You start focusing on what truly matters. the way you live, the way you think, and the way you respond to life's challenges. This mindset does not mean living without ambition or desire. It means pursuing your goals without being attached to the outcome. It means giving your best effort while understanding that results are never fully in your hands. It means appreciating the present moment rather than always chasing something in the future. Seneca wrote, "He suffers more than necessary who suffers before it is necessary." Most people create suffering in their minds by worrying about things that have not yet happened. They imagine worst-case scenarios, replay past mistakes, and obsess over things they cannot change. But none of this serves them. It only clouds their thinking and drains their energy. A practical exercise to counter this is what the Stoics called premeditation of adversity. Instead of fearing the unknown, deliberately imagine challenges that could arise, not to dwell on negativity, but to prepare your mind. By mentally rehearsing difficult situations, you become less afraid of them. You realize that no matter what happens, you have the strength to handle it, and this realization gives you confidence. Another key element of clear thinking is simplicity. The world is full of distractions, and many people overcomplicate their lives with unnecessary concerns. The Stoics valued simplicity because they understood that a cluttered life leads to a cluttered mind. When you simplify your thoughts, your decisions, and your daily routines, you create space for what truly matters. One way to practice this is through mental decluttering. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to that is not serving me? What unnecessary worries or obligations am I allowing to take up space in my mind? Letting go of unnecessary mental baggage allows you to think more clearly and act with greater purpose. Another powerful Stoic exercise is writing. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal every day, using it as a tool to reflect on his thoughts and improve his perspective. Writing helps clarify your thinking because it forces you to put your ideas into words. It helps you separate rational thoughts from emotional reactions, and over time, it reveals patterns in your thinking that you might not notice otherwise. To apply this, try setting aside a few minutes each day to write about your thoughts, challenges, and insights. Ask yourself, what did I learn today? What could I have handled better? What beliefs are shaping my decisions? This practice strengthens your ability to think clearly and make wiser choices. Ultimately, clear thinking is not just about logic or intelligence. It is about mastering your mind. It is about freeing yourself from unnecessary suffering, strengthening your ability to respond to life's challenges, and living with greater wisdom. The more you train your mind in these principles, the more unshakable you become. You start to navigate life with a sense of calm, clarity, and purpose. And as you continue to refine this skill, you begin to experience a deeper level of fulfillment and peace. The journey to mastering your mind is ongoing. Every day presents an opportunity to strengthen your perspective, to practice resilience, and to cultivate the clarity that allows you to live with wisdom and purpose. The more you train yourself to think clearly, the less control external events have over you. You stop being reactive. You stop allowing small inconveniences to dictate your mood. You begin to see life not as something happening to you, but as something you are actively shaping with your choices. This is the power of Stoicism. It is not just philosophy, but a way of living, a way of thinking that empowers you to face challenges with strength and to embrace each moment with a sense of purpose. No matter where you are in life, no matter what struggles you face, you have the ability to grow, to adapt, and to move forward with clarity. And the more you apply these lessons, the more you will see the transformation within yourself. So if this message resonated with you, if you found value in these insights, make sure to subscribe to the channel. This is just the beginning of a journey toward greater wisdom, resilience, and inner peace. There is so much more to explore, and I want to continue sharing powerful ideas that will help you navigate life with clarity and confidence. Join this community, keep learning, and most importantly, keep applying what you learn. Because true wisdom is not just in knowing, it is in doing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.